go. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of the Community Talk Show. I'm your host, Mohammed Amin, and today is the 6th, Wednesday, the 6th of December, and I'm broadcasting to you live from the heart of Alum Rock in Birmingham, and you can listen to our programs on www.apkewas.co.uk. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and Facebook. And to advertise and sponsor a programme, our number is 07944 808 141. That's 07944 808 141. As always, my programmes are topical interests concerning the local, national, globally, and the whole idea is to entertain you, my guests, my listeners. So if there's anything that you want me to cover in future programs, obviously, as always, drop a line, and we'll cover the stories. Some of my stories that we cover, they are not picked up in the mainstream media. That's for them to decide. But we try and do a balance and give everybody the right to reply, give everybody the opportunity to come on to my programs. And today's program, my guest today is my learned colleague and friend, Tony Adams. Tony Adams, as you probably gather, has been on my programs before, and he is from the National Union of Journalists, and a very, very professional individual who has been in journalism for a good number of years. So we all look up to him and we learn off him as well. Tony, good evening. Welcome to my Community Talk Show. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Amin, as always, for the kind invitation and a somber moment.
It is, unfortunately, the topic that we're going to discuss today. It's not something you would wish on anybody.
You wouldn't.
But just give us a brief background, please.
Okay, so we know over the last 8-9 weeks now, with the dire situation in Gaza and Palestine, since October the 7th, but of course we know it wasn't October the 7th, it was 48 and probably earlier than that.
Earlier than that, yeah.
But what the world has failed to see is, unfortunately, the loss, the futile loss of lives of my colleagues and comrades, and specifically journalists, in the last sort of 7 weeks. 60 at the moment in Palestine, and another 7 around Syria, and of course and the Middle East generally as well. So 60 in almost 60 days, one a day.
One a day.
And as and I'm not here as the official chair of the Birmingham National Union Journalists branch. I'm here as a journalist and just showing solidarity to my fallen comrades and how this has come to be. I mean, more journalists have been killed in the last 7 weeks than they have done over the last 20 years in various crises around the world. The International Federation of Journalists, obviously, which is the united voice around the world, is rallying support, and our own union, the National Union of Journalists, we've already contributed to the sum of around £20,000 to the IFJ Gaza Fund. Now, this isn't just money for rice and drinking water, which is much needed, by the way.
Yeah.
This money is primarily needed for, more importantly, a little bit of shelter, bulletproof vests, helmets, and more importantly, reporting equipment. Because at the moment, the only people that we actually have on the front line is the Palestinian journalists who are actually feeding the reports of the Western world, who sometimes wish to show it and sometimes they don't. And without sounding against, this is not me being anti-Zionist or anti-Semitic, it's a situation. We know the Israeli propaganda machine is in full flow, the military aside as well, but then we also know that the snipers and the command from the rules is shoot to kill. Even if you are genuinely have the press accreditation, have the helmets, and have the vests, you are still going to get shot, and we see this on a daily basis. So, brother, I mean, that is the situation. So, really, very sad. And we're getting reports of journalists, some Western journalists, almost packing up and saying there is nothing more that we can do.
Yeah.
Really and truly, it's a case now whereby live to live and protect yourself, because there's nowhere to run.
Tony, just for my own benefit as well, when we have an issue, a conflict in the world,
Yeah.
the journalists are there on the ground and they feed information into the rest of the world, and we look up to these journalists because they guide us of what is actually happening on the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm talking in general context now about the issues in the world. You always have the journalists with helmets, specific bulletproof vests, and they wear specific uniform, and they have all of their transport and what have you marked as journalists or media or whatever. Okay, hospitals are normally protected in international law. Whenever there's a war, nothing happens to a hospital. You know, even UN sponsored schools, they are a place of solitude.
Children and women as well, for
Children
example.
and women. So what's happening now? Have the rule books have been thrown out?
I think what's actually happening is the West have almost well, we know it's fallen on deaf ears, but you know, this whole thing about the 7th of October, which seems to be a catalyst,
Yeah.
and an open gate, hasn't it, for Netanyahu, who will go down in history as a war criminal, like Karadzic, like Milosevic,
Yeah.
as we know.
Yeah.
And this is nothing short, of another genocide and ethnic cleansing of what we saw in the 90s in Bosnia, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right.
And even then, with everything what was going through, with all the governments almost going from pillar to post, we saw it was too late. It was too late, and the UN, especially the Dutch forces, they were left in limbo, weren't
That's
they?
right.
You know,
I mean, I was talking to somebody today, and you know, they were attacking the north
Yeah.
of Gaza. The people were given less than half an hour to move down south.
Yeah.
People started to move down south. They had allegedly a ceasefire for a
Yeah.
couple of days. Aid went in, and now down south they're attacking that down south. So it's you know, genocide. There's no other way for it.
yeah, you know, but it's interesting, isn't it? Really, I mean, and I think again, and without sounding biased, I mean, you know, when you have one of your own fallen, it's bad news.
Yeah.
But when you have droves,
Yeah.
these are Muslim Palestinian journalists who are
Yeah.
working. I mean, don't forget we had the CNN correspondent only last week. His house was bombed.
Yeah.
9 members of his family were actually murdered with a bomb, and the following morning he was again reporting on the front line.
Yeah.
That just goes to show the heart.
That's the hard. The thing is, these people don't do it because it's a job, because they feel it's a duty, don't they?
You know, and this whole issue about Hamas, which we know, the atrocity that took place, it was an atrocity. There were mitigating circumstances.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be talked about again. Even last week, I was speaking to a very well-known group of journalists in London. This whole notion about jihad and what it actually means. Now, when your news editors don't actually understand what it means, how on earth are your frontline soldiers or your reporters going to understand that? Just like the way Allah Akbar is so branded so flippantly. So again, jihad, it's different context, it means different things. And the uprising at the moment, and we know, don't we, Amin? We know, don't we, Amin? At the end of the day, this is going to be a lost generation.
Yeah.
16,000 women and children, 6,000 plus or whatever it is, orphans. My heart goes out. At the same token, in that same breath, when I talk about my own comrades and my own Muslim brothers and sisters who have given their life in the line of fire, almost, haven't they, really?
Yeah.
But the issue here is, I mean, should they have been in that situation? International law prevents journalists, not immune, but there is strict regulation that in the theatre of war there are certain protocols that need to be adhered to. One of them is, of course, the ambulances, and of course journalists as well.
But you know, one of the very early recollections of the issues around the 7th of October, the journalists were told to move in a convoy in a specific area down south, and next minute they were targeted. And it was like it was like as if you're wiping the journalists out deliberately so they can stop the world finding out what's going on.
So the IDF propaganda machine have even come to more sort of obscure and almost sort of preposterous ideas that some or many Palestinian journalists knew exactly what was going to take place on the 7th of October. Now we know, don't we, with the reports that is coming through, and leaked reports, by the way, that the IDF were actually handed a blueprint last year, a 40-page, which they kind of dismissed. Now, listen, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but I do know the IDF, or certainly that part of the world, has a very strong defence mechanism. And how on earth, on that particular Saturday morning, your land, sea and air were compromised in such a way it was, it beggars belief. But let's come back to the heart of the matter. I think you've got some messages coming through as well.
Just looking through some of the messages.
But, you know, Nasser Abu Bakr, who is the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate's president, met only a couple of days ago with the International Criminal Court prosecutor in Ramallah. And it wasn't really a pleasant meeting because we know what's going on there, and of course, you know, on the UN platform as well. So yeah, Nasir Bukar, also Vice President of the International Federation of Journalists, reminded kind of complaints submitted by the PFJS and the IFJ over the targeting of Palestinian journalists by Israel's defence forces. And he also met, of course, Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, also met with the ICC. You know, look, the thing is, we know what happens there. It's just lip service, isn't it, really? What's going to stop more journalists being killed? I haven't got a crystal ball. I mean, but I do know is they are suffering. So what's actually happened then is, over the last few weeks, the IFJ, the International Federation of Journalists, have rallied their unions and have put out an appeal, the IFJ Fund appeal. And I'm pleased to say our own union here in the UK, the National Union of Journalists, have already contributed £20,000.
That's fantastic.
This is all my head office. So with our own chapels in the UK, we're organising. You know what I mean? I'm going to share something with you now, and it was only last Friday when the call sort of came out, and I thought, well, you know, even as an own branch, we've contributed healthily. What can I do? What can I do as a British Asian Pakistani Muslim journalist? What can I do? So I went through my contacts, and I've got, you probably know,
MashaAllah, you've got
it's a healthy, but itni sharam and afsoos ki ye baat hai. I had to explain to some of the leading movers and shakers in business in Birmingham what my WhatsApp message was about, and what I was trying to do. And I've got all to say, I've got to take this opportunity, somebody who I thought was the most obnoxious, arrogant piece of whatever on this planet Earth, Bajan, he was the first one. MashaAllah. Not even battered an eyelid. It's Tony, it's for the cause, and it was a healthy contribution. And that kick-started. But I am so disappointed. So disappointed. And you know I'm going through it like anyway as it is. And you know, but can I also say for my Muslim brothers and sisters who are listening, कि ये शर्म की बात है. Now here's the irony. I worked in Manchester and Leicester for a good part 15 years of my life. Prestwich is a very orthodox Jewish area. Can I just say,
parts of Manchester,
can I just say, again, since last week, most of the contributions have come from the Orthodox Jews from Prestwich, my old contacts, and a lot of my other contributions have come from the Sikh community in Birmingham, and a lot of contributions have come from Leicester, where I worked on the radio station. And if I'm doing that as a single person, what does that say to you about the leaders of so-called leaders? And I can talk about this. I'm very angry. I'm very upset. And somebody told me, he says, Tony, you know, this is ये हकीकत बात है. I'm going to try and speak a bit
no,
ये हकीकत बात है कि जब आप मुसलमान लोग आप इकट्ठे नहीं होंगे, ये फितरत है, ये लिखा गया है. And that guy, and I thought, yeah, Tony, is that true?
Yeah.
And the Orthodox Jews were saying, Tony, this is wrong.
Yeah.
We do not believe. And you know, when you read their when you read the ideology, what they're talking about, you think absolutely. So, brother, a lot of mixed emotions. But I like to say also, my friends, my family, even my daughter, you know, young as she is, she went to school, she's raised, and she's tried, because at the end of the day, I mean, you know, we're talking about journalists as well, but the bigger picture is the 15, 16,000 and countless other lives that are lost. Majority of these are 70% of women and children. Lost generation. And my daughter said to me, she says, Dad, you know what's going to happen, don't you? She said, I said, well, I think they were talking about JFK in one of the history lessons. And I think something on the lines of, you know, you can quash people, but you can never quash an ideology or an idea or something that's... And I thought, you know how true that is. And I don't think they can. And I think I'm not speaking for the Israeli government, but I think they are also very aware that this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair. This is not something they can eradicate, if that's what they're thinking, because it's an ideology. And the most important part is, of course, when you have faith and a strong ideology, it's a very hard thing to defeat.
And you know the other thing about it is, what you got to remember is we had a Abdul Wahid from the Human Relief Foundation yesterday, and he said that he actually went to Lebanon, and and these individuals in Lebanon were like ancestors from the fourth ancestors of those people who actually migrated in 1948. And they have not got residency status in Lebanon, and they're still living in Bedouin camps or what have you. So as clearly as you said, this problem will escalate and escalate, but you got 2-3 generations, because if you've got rid of the father who's the breadwinner, the mother and the children, they're going to suffer, and then you're creating even more hatred within that family, don't you?
You are, but I come back to what we were discussing a few minutes ago. I think the issue here really is the world, and you know, it's okay for Israel to defend itself, but at what level? At what level? And when you are you're breaking every Geneva Convention. Not that they believe in any anyway. Oh, by the way, interesting enough, the IFJ have a world-renowned press pass, which is recognised in 133 countries, apart from one country. Which one do you think that is? I myself had my visa revoked 3 times, so I've got no hell in chance of me going. But the issue here is, isn't it really, you know, international laws are being flouted. There's no rule of law. We know it's always sentimental, isn't it, really, when you've got journalists there. You know, we never saw this in Iran, did we? Mosul, all these areas.
Even, you know, you look back to the 80s, the first Falklands War. Even if you go back, the Falklands War.
Vietnam.
But you can even go back to Vietnam. But you know, people say, well, those was years ago. So you come back, you look, even you can go further back to Hiroshima. Even when what America did to Hiroshima, you go that far back. But let's go back to the early 80s, and you talk about the Falklands War, the 2 Gulf Wars, whatever. The journalists were like getting the information out of the country. And you know, with regards to the Falklands issue, if the journalists didn't get the reports out to us of what was happening with Argentina invading the Falklands Island, Mrs. Thatcher wouldn't have sent the fleet that she did. So you know, there are times when, you know, we rely on journalists to get that factual information out of the country, but deliberately targeting the journalists for well knowing that this is your journalist group, and deliberately aiming rockets at their vehicles, you know, what does that say?
Well, some might say, look, they're listening to the show tonight, and they might say, well, actually, you know what about Pakistan? What about India? What about South Asia? Absolutely, they are targeted. We know that, don't we? You know, and we know by the large count there are different militia groups that obviously operate. They have the operator Monday from various institutions.
Yeah.
We know who gives the green light to that.
Yeah.
But here it's very different. It's very real, and the body count's counting.
Yeah. Before we carry on our program, just a quick reminder to the to my listeners. You're listening to the Community Talk Show on Radio Apkivas, www.apkivas.co.uk. And there was something else that I was going to mention today. We're quite privileged that our own Mohammed Ali has gone to Saudi Arabia on Umrah. And if he's listening to the program, apologies, Bhai Saab, I probably can't give the standard of coverage that you do, but I'm trying to do my best. Mubarak to you for your Umrah and to your family, and mashallah, may you have a safe return for your onward journey to Pakistan and eventually back into the UK. Javed Akhtar, thank you very much for reminding me. It was on my notes to mention that this evening. Thank you very much for listening to my program, Javed Saab, and if there's any other comments you'd like to put in, please put them into the chat box, and I'll periodically cover them. Thank you very much. Sorry, we're going back to our journalists. Obviously, you've got 15,000, 16,000 innocent individuals being killed. When it's home to you that you've got 63 journalists in the last 7 weeks, that hurts even more, because what you've got is the fact is you may have a journalist in the UK, may have a journalist in Pakistan, may have a journalist in Palestine. You're like part of that one family, are you?
Well, they are, because they're tangible. These are people that we know or know through somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's names that we've always had around, bantered around, whether it be through emails or Zoom meetings or what have you. I was supposed to be flying out to, I think it was Spain or France, in fact last month, for part of a Google News initiative. Now, two of the journalists that were supposed to be joining us passed away in the first 3 days of the conflict. So, and because of that, everything's been pulled back. But every day when you hear a name, you think, oh my God, he or she is gone. What about their family? And then we know, of course, the families, unfortunately, a lot of members have also perished. And you think, oh, what do we do now? Well, what do we do now? You've got to dig deep in your pockets, and that's what we're doing. Money can only go as far as to what it needs to do, but you can't replace it with human life.
Well, it's like one of our close members of my extended family. They're married to gentleman's married to a lady from Gaza, and basically whole of the family has been wiped out. And that is so close to home. You think, well, hang a minute, that issue is there, but there's so many Palestinians in the UK.
I mean, even the footage that we're getting through into the UK is heavily censored anyway.
Yeah.
But when you're privileged to, under honestly forgiven circumstances, when you are in a position to see some of the raw footage, when you have 2-3-year-old girls crying, bewildered, when all their family's been wiped out in a hospital, just in rags. How are they going to grow up? What will they be going? They're traumatized, and countless other children, and mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and wives, as well as losing. I mean, it's come to people were talking to me when I went to Manchester a few days ago, Prestwich. They were talking about the Auschwitz and there was the gas chambers.
Gas chambers, yeah.
And the markings on the wrists.
Yeah.
Well, how ironic, almost, all these years on.
That's still identical, isn't it?
It?
The markings, so they recognise who I am.
I'm thinking, oh my, and this, and they're exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, whatever happens, at least something that they can be laid to rest.
Yeah.
And that, that when you think, you can't comprehend that at all. And then you think, Yallah, is that what it's come to? But it has. I mean, it has. And so many other godforsaken stories that we're hearing about. But look, it's about why I'm here tonight. It is 67 souls, in fact, 63 in Gaza, and 3 or 4 in Syria as well, because of course that conflict
still continues. You see, this is the bit where people forget that the conflict in Syria is still ongoing. The conflict with Russia, Ukraine, that's still ongoing. Okay, but suddenly this one seems to have taken over but because of because my personal opinion, and again, it's not opinion of Radio Ask my own opinion. It's like, is it down to this genocide that's been happening?
I think it's more than that. I mean, now when you look at Netanyahu, he's a very religious man.
Yeah.
And he is almost hell bent on his prophetic views. And somebody was telling me, now I'm not a Muslim scholar, so I don't know, please forgive me. He knows somewhere down the line, from the land of these children, there will be an uprising. Who this child will be, where he'll come from. Do you understand where we're going with this?
That is, that reference is in the scriptures.
Yeah. So in the Abrahamic books, he knows this very, very well. Now, has this been a green light to obliterate on that basis? God only knows. It's a bit like Pharaoh, isn't it, with Moses?
That's right. That's right.
And it's almost surreal, isn't it, when we talk about history? But this is what's happening at the moment. But the issue here is, why is the West so quiet? They're quiet because we know it's the coffers, it's the banks, isn't it? It's the Jewish lobbies and various institutions. We know activists already speaking. Some in the entertainment business. We know the way they've been coshed. You know, Mehdi Hassan, a good colleague of mine, NBC, his program was taken down because he questioned. Yeah. He questioned the spokesperson, Ragiv. And very, very, you know, he got the answers, but I think they didn't like that. Yeah. And of course, we know the UN ambassador to the Israeli UN ambassador to the UK. We know her spiel has all been, and she's been caught out.
Caught out a
number of times. Yeah. You know, is there a humanitarian crisis? No, I don't think so. You know, you got that on national TV.
Yeah.
So what do the UK regulator watch? Are they watching the same news as me and you? Yeah. Something's not quite right. But the question still needs to be answered. You know, how are they allowed to do what they are? They just are. And I don't think we have put enough force. Our own government is complicit, Mr. Amin, as you probably know, BEA and other institutions. Rolls-Royce, unfortunately to say, they are also there. You know, we could go on and on and on, because it's munitions. Yeah. It's the arms trade, isn't it? We know what's taking place, and we know different derivatives of various other defence mechanisms, and all over the shop. There, you know, things are going on in the UK.
You know, there's so many companies, in the UK and America. When you start nitpicking and tracking them all back and what have you don't realise where the funds are all actually related to, or where the parent companies are.
UK, France, Germany, and that's what, and the US, isn't it, really? Yeah. Because people forget, you know, to put a jet fighter together, it's not like
no.
It's not like whatever it is. Yeah. You know, these are components. These are logistical companies.
That's right.
Small cogs make big cogs.
That's right.
And I was looking into one of the ejection seats, and there's a place in Derby somewhere, somewhere in Leicester, and you think, crikey, you know, you might drive by these places.
That's right.
And this new terminology now about boycotting, very powerful. It can work, but how long can we maintain that for? You
know, one of the things when people try to explain something to individuals about what technology goes in for these fighters and what ammunition and how all that works. I remember the history of British Leyland and Rover. There was something like 60,000 individuals working in and around the West Midlands who would make various components for Rover, but at Longbridge there was only 6,000 people on the track banging them together. Yeah. But these people had to make the parts for them to be banged into cars. Yeah. You know, and you don't realise how much massive it is. The economy is, and even I mean, fighter jets and what have you put aside. You look at your normal aerospace plane, that's normal commercial plane. When you start working out all the grummets that go in there, and where are they, as you said, certain individuals just make injector seats, certain make gears, certain make hydraulics and everything, and obviously these are all put together, so you don't realise the whole economy that's literally propping up all this type of industry.
You know, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think, you know, we're talking about the arms industry, but again, we also know, don't we? I mean, yes, okay, we've got GCHQ here, and we've got the security forces,
Yeah.
and they do a grand job. But we also know the capabilities of the IDF and the Israeli defence generally, and we know. But we also know, and this was a Freedom of Information request, which was about 4 years ago, I think just before COVID, mass surveillance, face recognition at the moment. And the leading technology, surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, comes out of,
Yes.
That's right.
So the request on the FOI was how many UK police forces have that. Very reluctantly they came back, and yes, West Midlands have it as well, the Met have it. And the technology we're talking about is basically, it's a mobile mass surveillance, what we call IMSI catchers.
That's it, yeah.
So these are coppers that can be walking around, that you might think have a backpack or what have you, but they can collect up to 30,000 numbers a minute.
Yeah.
Just think about that number. Where does all that data go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mass surveillance, by the way, okay? And this is a leading technology. Pegasus.
Yes.
Highway.
Yes.
Been around, and it will continue to be around, and that is the leading workhorse at the moment. So it's scary. It's scary, and I think it's scary because the way we know Israel has embedded itself in so many different areas, especially with defence and AI, which is the other one at the moment.
AI is a big player. Yeah.
With all these precision so-called bombings at the moment that are taking place, it's just not a chap upstairs, you know, 7,000. No, it's a drone.
It's a drone.
Okay?
And,
a drone with super efficient laser technology.
Believe it or not, UK is one of the big suppliers, and guess
Elements.
where they go to?
Well, don't go to Tamworth, that's for sure. And other parts of the Midlands. But listen, we've got activists who are working on the ground and calling them out for what they are.
Yeah.
Outrageous. How you can actually have a factory and then, you know, 300 yards you've got a primary school.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, does it, really?
Yeah.
So, but look, at the end of the day, but here's the irony. Our audience, our Pakistani audience, our Asian audience, how clued up are they? You know, I was in Burger King yesterday. A friend of mine wanted a coffee. We were disputing. Palestinian girl, oh, she looked Arabic. So the question was, she went to the counter and she ordered burgers. Are they halal? No. Is this beef? Yes, yeah. But halal didn't come into it. So by the order she spent about 25 quid. And it wasn't until she jogged back to her table and about to take her first big munch, and the other brother said, sister, do you know this is not halal?
It's not halal.
It's beef, beef, but and she was taken back. So then she sort of went there and she said, I'm not coming back here again or what have you. But you know, where do you start? Where do you stop? Killings are going on. We know what the problem is. Our government is saying nothing. The West is saying nothing. But at the moment now, the way things are going, look, even Biden is changing his tone.
That's right.
We know that, yes. Even of course Macron, he's Germany.
Yeah, he's involved. Germany's involved now.
Heavily. Yeah. And how much will you gaslight the situation? So, but it doesn't bring those souls back.
No.
What it does tell me and you and the world is these are international laws that are being broken every day, and if it can happen now, it'll happen again and again and again, and there's something has to be done. I mean, even today, I think that in the UN, you know, I think
we met a number of times before about Kashmir issues and United Nations resolution, this and that, the other. I mean, they're not. There's no action, is there?
No, and that really goes to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? Really, when you, it's almost lip service, isn't it? You know, but it's a dire situation. So all I can say is, folks, you know, if you are in a position, if you go somewhere, if you see something on the news or the headlines, but by the way, this isn't. I haven't come here to do a charity appeal. I've almost come here also to even not vent my anger, but just share my disappointment. What my expectations were and the reality is, it's always the opposite.
Because historically, we always say, wherever there's a need the Muslim community has always open-handedly, and I'm shocked to hear these stories from you today, because we never say that if there's a drought or a flood in Pakistan, we just look after Pakistan.
And I mean, I'm honestly, even on that, you put it so eloquently. I'm nobody, but I represent my field. Have done for 35 years, and that's all it
no,
was.
but you what you got to understand is you are passionate about the field that you're representing. As I said to you in the beginning, it's like one of your own, 63, 67, so. One of your own has gone. So. Now I know, we look at the 16,000 figure, and God forbid, if that was one of my family, right, it hurts you, but. You guys in your profession, you represent your profession, and those 67 people, they are part of your family because you are part of an extended family.
Without a doubt. I don't think you could have somebody up that well.
And that's why it hurts even more. You see, because like if I stand out in the street and I ask for some money for charity or what have you, appreciate that. But like. When one of your family has been affected,
and my wife said something interesting. Was it this morning? She was reading Fajr prayers, and she woke up and she says, Tony, she says, "Bachare, ye to chale gaye, but ye do yatim."
Yatim, but
again, that's a very big section.
And in our culture, in our religion, that is one of the first. When there's no point me celebrating, no point me whining and there's no point me celebrating with extravagance, and then these children, especially yatim, may not have that evening meal. That's so important for our religion base.
So she was just thinking ways of maybe she could do something herself and what have you. So again, this doesn't take this away completely from, and I don't want to give it any more credence than the massive amount of lives that have been lost. This is just a proportion, just like as there will be health workers, ambulance workers and drivers. So again, we have a different section of the community and communities, haven't we, who have been caught up.
Well, there were some doctors who were protesting in London last Friday, or a fortnight ago, and they were literally doctors and nurses, and some of them were actually from the Middle East as well, and they were protesting because their equivalent profession, obviously what was happening in the hospitals and those hospitals were supposed to be sacred and protected, and they lost so many lives, and they said, look, the doctors there are so privileged in the sense that Allah Ta'ala has given them that ability. They're saying that, we don't care if our lives are risk, our job is to save lives, and they carry on. The unfortunate thing was that they weren't getting the antibiotics, they weren't getting the morphine to give to those children.
It's systematic, isn't it, from all fronts, not only from the bombardments, from the bombs and the missiles and the guns and the bullets, water, electricity, health, medical. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. This has been a total violation of every law that you can think of that has been broken, and not when you can't even see light at the end of the tunnel. Believe it or not, tunnels being the key word. It almost sounds like a pun, doesn't it? Really, which has almost become almost laughable from what we found. Under hospitals and under beds. This has just been a fabrication by far and large. Hence, why it's so important that we have on the line. We have journalists who can actually feed us the real stories, apart from the propaganda, which seems to be a big machine that just seems to be pumping it out day, noon, and night.
Well, one large television network was told to stop broadcasting from that region, and they deliberately targeted their staff there, and a number of their staff, out of the numbers that you're saying, passed away as well.
Yes.
Okay, so again, it's like, it's not hearsay, and that particular network is still broadcasting and still doing its best. And even though what they are broadcasting, a lot of it's highly edited, what they're broadcasting.
It's diluted, isn't it? I know. And and we could talk about the media and its ownership, but maybe it's a program for a different day. But look, it's it's sad, isn't it? It's sad because you know, Jeremy Bowen, one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
most respected
Yeah, yeah,
journalists,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
BBC, very vocal,
Yeah.
very, very,
Yeah.
you know, to the point,
Yeah.
and you know, he's had a slap on the wrist as well. So that they're being, look, you know, you can.
But like, and you know yourself, there are times where you, as a journalist, you pick up a story, you follow the story, you become so attached to it because it emotionally hurts you. And like I said, because one of your family has passed away, it hurts you even more, doesn't it?
I think, you know,
And regardless of what I'm telling you, you can
think-
slap me, you can sap me from doing my job.
I think
but that comes from the heart, though, doesn't
I
it?
think you've hit the nail on the head. With everything that's going on aside, I know 99.9% of my fellow journalists up and down the world, country, whatever you want to call it, that are covering these stories, they know that there's a body count every day.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, another one of us has fallen. What do we do? It could be me next time. You know. I mean, of course, a famous war correspondent the UK ever had was Kate Adie.
Kate ADR, yeah.
You know, and,
Yeah.
and we, you know, and of course Michelle Crawford, who's
Yeah.
is, you know, so we could. And these are
Yeah.
women, by the way.
That's right.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Kate Adie,
Yeah.
war correspondent.
Yeah.
You think, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, even my senior colleagues have been shaken to the core because they are not guaranteed. There's no protection.
Yeah.
Just because you've got a press helmet and a bulletproof jacket on, you are not exempt from that sniper's bullet.
And and that's where, you know, you could say statistically somebody's caught out on a crossfire, what have you. But these were deliberately targeted, though.
They were, and they are, in the same way a 7 and 8 year old child can be targeted on the street by a sniper. Child.
So, like, if a child throws a stone, the only way to shut the child up is like finish them off.
You shoot them.
So this is this.
No, and this is not new law that's been brought in, or as we know with the IDF, the only country in the world that will take a child into jail and put them into an adult's jail.
Yeah.
How draconian is that?
Yeah.
How wrong is that? You know, and we know Human Rights Watch have spoken countless times. You know, we've got NGOs that go through. What, you know, what's the?
But you know, like so Amnesty International, the NGOs, they're all speaking up about it. But where does this leave your journalist colleagues in the world then? What's the sentiments with them?
Exactly that. It's going to be a long drawn out affair. We need legislation to either come through now, or the UN needs to speak. It's Biden, isn't he?
Yeah.
Biden's got to give the green light, hasn't he?
Yeah.
No way can you target journalists anymore.
Yeah.
We need the political heavyweights now to speak about this openly. Because the way things are at the moment, Amin, the Israeli, the IDF have a green light to just pop off whoever they want, whenever they want. And they're not accountable. You know, what war crimes tribunals are these guys going to be going to? There's none. You know, and they don't see it as that because they say Israel has a right to defend itself. To what extent?
Yeah.
To what extent? And journalists and health workers and you know, so-called, these are covenants in the Geneva Convention, which have no merit, I can tell you now. But yeah, I mean,
I'd go even one further and say that Geneva Convention's been ripped up and just put in the bin because nobody's actually following any of these rules.
It's gone a bit like our Rwanda policy, hasn't it? It's just the way
we got a couple of minutes before the end of my program, and that's something else really hurt me this week. And I've written to our Prime Minister Rishi, and I'm not that I'm expecting any of from the Home Office to come on my community talk show, and I welcome any one of the representatives to explain to me. But I lead a simple life. I look at the information, I digest it. Now, if I was looking to bring a spouse into the UK from anywhere in the world, currently I need a salary just under 19,000. Okay?
Yeah.
And there are strings attached, there's conditions attached, and they not automatically get leave to remain. So it's 2 years, 5 years, and a 10-year. Okay. And that spouse that I bring into the UK, the individual has to do various life in the UK examinations and speak fluent English, and I totally understand all these rules and what have you. But suddenly, overnight, okay, they've increased that salary figure to just under 39,000, okay? And I'm thinking, right. So the net migration in the UK this year was something like, last year was something like 745,000. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, how many spouses have actually come into the UK? What about these people who are coming into our shores? Surely they're the net migration figures, but the Rwanda policy has put this extra clause in, and it's, you know, and I've put it out on social media, I've put it out on the professional social media, and guess what? A number of people have liked my comments. I'm yet to find out any explanation, because it's going to have no impact whatsoever in that large figure.
So this was on the 21st of November last month.
GGG.
NUJ response to Supreme Court Rwanda ruling. And as chair of the Black Members Council, this was my little statement. The NUJ Black Members Council was instrumental in highlighting the depravity of the government's Rwanda policy and challenge its rhetoric with a motion that was unanimously passed at a conference earlier this year and subsequently welcomed to the recent landmark Court of Appeals judgment. The sheer notion of a plan to relocate some of the most desperate and vulnerable individuals in dire need of assistance to Rwanda was nothing short of disgraceful and should have never have seen the light of day. That continues, but we know it's a business transaction.
And this is where our foreign minister has got over there this afternoon, signed another deal.
So Mr. Cleverly is not Mr. Clever at all. It's all about money, but exactly how it will work, what the exchange rate will be, and you know, there's a thing about in entertainment, bums on seats.
Yeah.
But this will be bums on boats, and how many you can get of those on a boat to Rwanda.
And then, you know, you think about it, the 745,000. How many of those you're going to get on planes? How many planes you're going to get to fill up to get out of the country? The numbers are ludicrous.
Well, rest assured, I mean, I can tell you, with everything else going on, this is also very much on the time frame, and I've already got meetings with the Joint Council for the Welfare and Immigration next couple of weeks. I'm speaking to the Refugee Council next week. And there's a couple more as well. And by the way, we go to the Black Workers TUC conference in mid-April next year. And this will be, of course, our motion as well. And we'll be fighting hard.
And you know, like when the government wants to break out news, no news is good news. But this news story, it's not in the back page. It's like in the middle somewhere where the adverts are. Nobody really is going to go. It
just doesn't make.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it? Thank you for agreeing with me.
You're a number cruncher.
Yeah.
Now tell me, from the UK to Rwanda, whatever the mileage is,
GGG.
how would that work?
GGG.
Now, then of course you're flouting of asylum rules, immigration rules, and refugees. You know,
And you know we've been to COP28 and we're going to environmentally friendly. Now, even if you get every one of those 745,000 onto a plane, how many planes do we need? You know, it's ludicrous.
But Rwanda, I'm sorry, I was very poor at geography, but from what I know, it has its own tyrannical problems. It's not the most safest place, is it?
No.
According to the World Health Organization.
That's right.
So I would have thought, get your own house in order. But it's interesting. I mean, don't forget. But wasn't this something that's even? Wasn't this first from Priti Patel to watch?
That's right.
And then subsequently taken by.
That's right.
Suella Doberman.
And also, if you remember Rwanda, next door to it is Burundi. And they've got sectarian issues there.
We know with Tutsis and everything.
Tutsis, that's it, okay? So when I heard about Rwanda, and I thought, hang on a minute, Rwanda is East Africa. So I literally looked it up, and I thought, you know what? My geography is reasonably good. So on the one side of Rwanda, I've got Tanzania, then I've got Uganda.
Who have also had the government toppled.
Then they've got the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Which, by the way, just on that note, You know, Congo is a very rich state.
GGG.
They won't tell you that.
That's
probably
right.
one of the richest African
Yes,
states at the
it
moment.
is,
as
it is, yeah.
Tika, so with all the minerals, with
Yeah,
the
but
gold,
you
everything
know
else.
the minerals, especially the value of lithium.
Lithium.
There's the
Yes.
and because of the demand
Yeah.
in the Western world
Yes.
about batteries
Yes.
and what have you, lithium. Anywhere there's lithium, suddenly the value of lithium's just gone through the
And
roof.
that's why we know the UK is so keen to get their foot in there. Well, we don't know what's going to happen, do we? Like you said, I mean, the geopolitics could be vast for different reasons, but Rwanda, I don't know who thought, whose master plan was it? Was it Boris's?
Yeah.
Was it Blair's?
No,
was it Lord Cameron's? I mean, because he's back.
Well, that's right. Well, originally they
was on-
muted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's back in the fold again now.
Yeah.
So you know, we laugh and joke about it, but like you know, you've had all your team, and then you had to bring in somebody who's not an MP, who doesn't even sit in the Lords. Okay, so you bring him into the cabinet, and then I'm thinking, hang on a minute. My history isn't that bad. So I go through my books and say, hang on a minute, I can't be part of the cabinet unless I'm an MP, elected MP, or I'm a member of the Lords. But I didn't realise the night before they got the paperwork through. I had a quick phone call to King Charles and said, right, mate, can you get in through the back door? And suddenly he's in the Lords. It's just ludicrous, isn't it?
It is.
And people are laughing at us, and we're laughing stock of Europe at the moment.
So, you know, if that's happening in the world of real politics...
And people look up the UK as the mother of all parliaments.
And then we're looking at mass genocide and ethnic cleansing, and the loss of civilian life, and in the capacity I'm here tonight, the loss of journalists who are losing their lives countlessly day in, day out. You do kind of lose faith in life, generally, don't you? Because you think, well, actually...
On a serious note, you know, from the bottom of my heart, and Radio Upgivers, you know, those journalists and those 16,000 individuals who have lost their heart, lost their lives, you know, they are in our thoughts, in our prayers. That's the only thing that, you know, that we can do.
That's all.
And I strongly urge people to donate generously to these type of fundraising charity events. And
well, once again, I will say a big thank you to my Sikh community, to my Hindu community, and my Jewish community, the Pakistani community. I had no expectations, I'll say it again. It's a blight on our society. It is what it is. We're not there with a begging bowl, but if they can't stand up on an occasion like this, and many more, because we're going to have many more situations like this, it's going to be marked down in history. So, I mean, thank you very much.
No, Tony, thank you. Well, it was always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And I really appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.
There you are, listeners. We're coming to the end of my program now. Thank you very much for listening in, as always. Until next time, inshallah, next Tuesday, stay tuned. And if there's anything you want me to cover, please drop us a line on 07944 808 141. We'll do our best to accommodate you. Thank you. Look after yourself. Take care. Khada Hafiz.